Hey everybody, Ragnarok here, and I just wanted to record a quick little video of a game I just finished yesterday in a local tournament I was taking place in, a 2-day tournament, getting ready for my big tournament at the World Open next month. I was in the under 1900 section and did pretty good. I got 4th place with 3.5 points out of 5, so this was one of my wins that I had against a guy rated about 1800, and I wanted to share it because it has some really good ideas of how to exploit a weakness really quick. Even if you don't know all the openings, I know I try to go through as many different openings as I can through ragchess.com or through these videos, but you know, it's really all about, you can't memorize everything, so you really want to make sure to understand some main ideas just about looking at the board in general. So I was playing as white, my opponent was playing as black here, and he decides to go for the French defense with e6. I played d4, d5, which is all standard. A couple different options I can take. One I've been looking at a lot recently is knight to c3. It's kind of my normal variation. The main move, most people will come out here with the Vinever variation with bishop to b4. A lot of complications there. I've been kind of researching lately. Creates a very weird game, but in this particular game he went with his knight to f6. And now the main thing you want to think about when somebody's playing with the French defense is they have these 3 light pawns, and when you have pawns on light squares, it makes your light squared bishop less efficient, and that's just because naturally he would love to come out here, but he's got this pawn in his way. So his limitation is he can really only go here and attack these 3 squares. So that means that when you have a lot of pawns on your light squares, that makes your dark squared bishop very, very powerful. And then the very opposite for me. So my dark squared bishop is going to be probably the weaker one, because if you think about it, my next move is probably going to be to push this pawn. So I'll have 2 pawns on dark squares, and then this bishop has the same issues as this light squared bishop does. Because I would like to play c3, have d4 and e5 as my pawn structure. That means this bishop can't really go this way. So that means that my light squared bishop is actually a good bishop. So my goal right now is actually not to push that right away. The move I did was bishop to g5, because I'm pinning his knight and then I'm threatening to play e5, which I want to do anyway. He could exchange here and try to relieve some tension. If he tries to push, you know, that might be an option as well. I'll probably just back up. But most people decide to play here and block the pin, which makes sense, but this prompts my next move of e5, which forces the knight away. He could do it again, possibly a trade here, but I would probably take back with this piece. I don't think it would work out in this scenario. Yeah, it wouldn't, because I'd end up getting 2 pieces for that. So that wouldn't work out there. So instead he goes to d7. And one thing that I know a lot of French players want to play, which is why he played the French, is eventually he's going to play c5. And the reason c5 is it's just the French defense is these 3 pawns trying to attack the center, relieve the pressure on e5, so you can eventually take it with this knight if possible. So I know that he eventually wants to play c5. So first we trade the dark squared bishops. So I've achieved my goal. His bishop is now considered a bad bishop. My bishop wants to be here so it can control all of these squares. My dark squared bishop, as I mentioned, is gone, and that would have been my weak bishop. So I just remain calm and try to take care of getting my bishop on a good square, knowing that if he wants to attack this bishop, he's going to have to push his pawn to c5 and then c4. That would hamper my bishop, of course, but he's going to have to play c5 first, which he does in this moment. And this is the weakness that I really want to point out. Whenever you make any pawn move, they're always going to cause some sort of weakness. This is something I'm continuing to learn as I'm going over the board, so I definitely wanted to share it with you guys. But this this pawn protects this square right here, and it's a square that's my e5 pawn is helping to put pressure on. And whenever you have any pawn, you really want to have a knight on one of these 2 squares at some point, of course, if there's not a pawn attacking it. So the second he plays c5, there's a big weakness and a big gap right here. And now that he doesn't have his dark squared bishop, the only piece that could attack this right now is his queen. So if I can get my knight in here in these 2 moves, this is really good, because it's going to have check on his king who hasn't castled yet, and this knight is just going to stay here for a very long time and be very annoying because it can attack, why don't I just show all of the 8 squares. So once this knight's here, it can attack all of these squares, and that's just really annoying because 6 out of 8 of those are on his side of the board, which is why knights are great in the center. Even better, it's closer to him. So when he played that, I immediately played this move. I didn't really have to think too much longer for that. And this does a lot of things. He has to essentially give up a piece very soon, because if he castles, I have this move right here. And this is kind of the dream square for a knight because it would fork the king and the rook. Or if these pieces aren't developed, the rook can't move at all. So that's why when you get a knight there, it's really strong. Even better, I forced his knight away so it's blocking his queen from taking that piece. And even better again, I can now go into this square if he somehow defends this with something like knight to a6. So the way he defended it was to bring his knight here and essentially give up a piece. Probably better would have been something like this, maybe even king d8. It's not pretty, but it's much better. I would probably then opt to go into the d6 square. Mission achieved. He has not castled, and this knight will not be kicked for a little while. Just try to think of how you can actually attack this knight. I think his knight would have to go here and then here to attack it. So that's going to be 2-3 moves before this is even dislodged. Meanwhile, I'm going to start pushing pawns, bringing my knight out, just developing while he's trying to deal with this annoying knight. So, I mean, that's what could have happened, I guess. But he went to b6, immediately giving up a piece, as I'll show you here. My knight comes in to d6, which is check, so he has to move. The correct move, I think, would have been to go this way, because this bishop is only protected by this knight. So if I can force that knight away, I'll win a piece. Even better, I get pressure on the queen, and then I can just hop back to this square. So the move here is, after the king moves away, just take the pawn. 2 pawns protecting the knight. I'm attacking the piece that's defending this bishop. He just has to give a piece up. So if he did move away, for example, I would just take this bishop. He'd probably come here, not putting any pressure on the knight, but attacking the g-pawn. And I would probably just develop if he takes, just kick his piece away. Maybe even come back here at that point. I'm not sure, but his pieces are all over the place. I'm actually up a bishop. This is just completely winning. So he just develops his knight as normal. So I take the free piece, but he gets the pawn center. Now I have to take the bishop because my knight's unprotected. So yeah, I mean, he's got these 2 pawns in the center. That's kind of cool, but he is down a piece. And this is where I thought for a little while, he has a lot of threats here. If he comes in, so let's say I make just a developing move, he has a lot of annoying threats, like check, taking here maybe, so he doesn't have to double up his pawns. He also has, if I block that, this is also kind of annoying. I mean, my queen's stuck holding this bishop down, but he also can come here. I can't easily develop here anymore because after this, I can't do this because his knight is now protecting the other knight and he wins a piece back. So that would just be annoying to deal with. So my main answer was just queen d2, blocks both of these annoyances, let him take the pawn back because his pawns are going to be doubled, and that's just pretty awful. So then, just as normal, develop my knight. Again, I don't want to develop here because this is just a weird structure. I mean, I could have some counterplay here, but I don't have a dark squared bishop, so I don't know how effective it's going to be. So I opt for just knight e2, develop castle, maybe even castle the other way, who knows. Although I do like these pawns eventually going this way. That would be pretty cool. So he goes h5, I castle right into it, h4, h3. He really doesn't have too many attacks here. This is just to block the pawn from coming forward. g5, and then f4 is the move here. I don't like my pawn structure. Again, I create a weakness here, but I notice that while I'm creating that weakness, 1, my knight is protecting it, and 2, his knight really can't get in there. I can't even think of a quick way that he could. Normally, when you're 2 diagonals away for a knight, it takes 4 knight moves, so he'd probably have to do like here, 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 and then here, kind of a weird zigzag, which he can't accomplish because the second he goes here, I just take his knight. So I go f4, kind of forcing him to take. I take back with queen, so now his queen is pinned to protecting checkmate. He trades knight for bishop, which is not really good because you don't want to trade when you're down. I take back. He comes here, and I do want to show off a cool tactic I didn't get to do in the game because the game actually ended. But I go rook to c1, and you might notice that my queen or my knight is actually hanging if I do that. But I noticed that his king is actually blocked in here. So the second I check, his queen can't defend or else he's going to lose the queen, so he has to come out here. So this is a tactic I wanted to do in the game. I would come here with check. He's going to come out here, and I think it's mate in 5 total. So check here, which I could ultimately win the rook back, so I'd be up a rook to a knight. But even better, if he comes here, check, 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 and then checkmate. So that was a cool tactic I saw that I wanted to do. But in the game, actually, he played e5. This isn't too difficult a decision. Really just check, he takes back, check, he takes, and then I take the rook. And then the game ended. So really all coming back to, let me find, that c5 move really just was the beginning of the end. I'm sure this guy was a really great player, but you know, when you mess up in the opening, it can make fools of even a 2500 rank rating player. So that hole right there really won the game for me, and hopefully you guys learned something from this game. Thanks for watching. I'll upload some of my other videos from the tournament. Definitely some really good games, some awesome stuff to learn, of course, and keep on the lookout for those videos.